Hello, Professor Michael Lipey here, and today I'm going to talk about self-persuasion and self-justification, emphasizing cognitive dissonance. So here's a couple of questions for you. What happens when we engage in attitude discrepant behavior? That's a question that we'll be answering. That is, what happens when we behave in a fashion that's inconsistent with how we actually believe, or what we actually believe, or what our attitude is. Might also ask the question, which kind of helps us answer the first, why does role playing lead to enduring attitude change? Uh, so Irving Janis, okay, did some classical research on this, and later we recognized Janis as the person who developed the notion of groupthink and did research on that. So basically, Janis argued he did research showing that, for example, did a bunch of really interesting kind of applied studies in which he tried to change to convince and actually succeed in uh, getting smokers to quit. Okay, and one of the most effective techniques was a role playing technique in which uh, the client was asked to basically role play certain kinds of uh, uh, situations, okay, such as uh, being in the hospital and dying from lung cancer and having to tell your children that that was the case. Various kinds of scary, playing various kinds of roles of involving what smoking did to people. Okay, and that proved more effective in getting people to quit and stay quit than simply giving them persuasive messages. Okay, arguing for about the dangers of smoking. Okay, and uh, so role playing was a very significant thing here. Okay, Janice argued that, well, it forces one to learn the message. Okay, and also to present, because you're self-processing, you're not passively listening. You're playing it, you're role playing it, you're embracing it. Okay, so you're learning the message of the dangers of smoking in this particular example. You're also basically engaging in behavior, okay, that in this role play that is inconsistent with the way you want to be, okay, with what your attitude really is toward your health. Uh, uh, so you have that inconsistency. You also have the consistency of it being behavior that's inconsistent with your pro smoking attitudes. Okay, so could we change the attitude about smoking and get people to stop smoking? And a more effective way to do that was this role play model. Okay, so yeah, tied in with that is this idea that it's easy to confuse what we do or what we say with how we really feel. Okay, so that was tied in to this whole thing as well. Okay, we've got, and that'll factor into our discussion of how we respond to our attitude discrepant behavior. So, why else can changes in behavior lead to changes in attitude? Well, we see some reasons there. Okay, and we also have the idea of self justification. Okay, that when we do something, actually do something that's inconsistent with our attitude, okay, that uh, we have to somehow justify that um, as a means of basically maintaining our sense of self integrity, if you will. Okay, and so this is where cognitive dissonance theory comes in. Okay, so dissonance theory basically says that we're motivated by a desire for cognitive consistency. Okay, so that people basically uh, the idea is that it's essentially human nature to prefer to be in a state of in which our thoughts and our behaviors and everything and our attitudes are in a state of harmony. Okay, that when we have inconsistency among our attitudes or between an attitude and a behavior, uh, we basically feel uncomfortable. Okay, so cognitive dissonance theory's idea is that inconsistent cognitions not only are they uncomfortable, okay, but they're uncomfortable to the point where they arouse a psychological tension, okay, and later we'll see also a physiological state that people become motivated to reduce. And once we behave inconsistently with our attitudes, we develop a motivation to reduce that inconsistency. And that's the essence of cognitive dissonance theory, that this is kind of like a need, it's a drive, okay? Inconsistency is like thirst. We're thirsty, become motivated to get something to drink. We're in a state of cognitive dissonance, inconsistency, we're motivated to resolve it, to return to a consonant state, okay? And that basically human thing, okay, can lead to irrational and sometimes very maladaptive behavior. So let's say that we have an attitude that, and a motivation to want to lose weight. My attitude is, I'm better off if I lose weight. I want to lose weight. Okay. I have this inconsistency between what I want to be, okay, and the fact that I'm heavier than I want to be, okay. So that would certainly basically lead to a situation where you want to behave in a way that's kind of consistent with the fact that you're going on a diet, you're trying to lose weight. So what happens when you actually go against your diet, okay? What happens, let's, for example, you're, at a social gathering and a chocolate mousse is served, and you help yourself to a helping of it, okay? A heaping portion, okay? So now you've behaved, okay, in a way that's inconsistent with your attitude. Your attitude is, I'm on a diet, I prefer to lose weight, okay? So you've got this inconsistent with the fact that you're doing exactly the opposite of what that attitude suggests, okay? So how are you going to resolve it? You got this inconsistency all of a sudden. Well, you can change your attitude. I don't really need to be on a diet. Okay, the diet isn't that big a deal. Okay, you can change your perception of the behavior. I didn't eat that much. You can add consonant cognitions. Well, actually, chocolate mousse is very nutritious. You've heard what they say about chocolate. Okay, you can minimize the importance of the conflict. I don't care if I'm overweight. Life is short. You can reduce the choice you had in the matter. What was I supposed to do? The mousse was prepared for this special occasion. So you're in a distant state. There's all kinds of options, okay, for how you can reduce it. And distance theory is going to say you're going to reduce it somehow. Okay, you're going to do one of these things or something that achieves the same outcome of reducing the distance. So there are three classes of behaviors that typically lead to the arousal of dissonance, okay, this inconsistency. One is decisions, okay, and a second is effortful behavior, okay. I go back to decisions by saying, as we're going to see, decisions create problems not only before you make the decision, when you got to make the decision, but actually when you make a decision, you're launched into a state of dissonance because you've basically rejected the alternative that you didn't choose. Okay, effortful behavior. What happens when and this often happens that we engage in something relatively effort that we worked for, and then we find out that the outcome, what we achieved, is not such a great thing. So the dissonance is, boy, I worked so hard for this. We'll get back to that. And then finally, there's this attitude discrepant behavior idea. We find ourselves many times, okay, maybe, multiple times a day, okay, possibly, basically engaging in a behavior, okay, uh, because of situational reasons and so on, that it doesn't really jibe with what our attitude is. We behave in ways that on reflection we probably wouldn't behave that way. Okay, we'll get into that. Okay, so these are the situations uh, that have been studied a lot, and that really are important aspects of our lives. So let's talk about decisions. Justifying. We justify difficult decisions. And so we might say when good choices get even better. So the idea is here is that whenever we make difficult decisions, we feel dissonance. Okay? What's the dissonance? Okay? Well, let me back up a bit. Okay? So let's say you had to make a decision to decide whether you were going to go to, because you were accepted at both, okay, to go to John Jay College or Lehman, okay, uh, and uh, and so you chose John Jay, okay. It was a hard decision because they both have good options, okay. They both have good aspects and qualities, okay, and they both have some downsides, okay. So both are positive, okay. So we have a positive attitude about both John Jay and Lehman. But when we choose John Jay, okay, and reject Lehman, the rejection of Lehman is inconsistent with the fact, our positive attitude toward it, okay. And all of the good things that we gave up that were associated with Lehman, okay, are inconsistent with the decision as well. Likewise, John Jay, okay, yes, it has lots of positive qualities, but not all of them are qualities. So anything that's kind of negative that you were hesitant about for going to John Jay, okay, let's say it's further away than Lehman, okay, uh, you know, it really doesn't have as good. The library isn't as good as Lehman's, or whatever it might be. Okay, whatever's negative about John Jay. Okay, and you embraced it. Okay, all those negative things about it. Okay, are inconsistent with the fact that you chose it. Okay, so the positives of Lehman, which you rejected, and the negatives of John Jay, which you accepted. Okay, all create dissonance. Okay, so basically, the positive qualities of what we rejected and the negative qualities of what we accepted are all sources of dissonance. Okay, so the idea is that we rationalize the correctness of our decision. This is how we reduce dissonance. We reduce our dissonance by exaggerating the positive features of what we chose and the negative features of what we rejected. Okay, the unchosen alternative. Okay, so that's a phenomenon known as the spreading of alternatives. You're choosing between two overall really good things. It's a tough choice, okay, and that itself creates a lot of conflict, okay, but you make the decision, okay. But the bottom line is that after we make the decision, we're in what Leon Festinger, the founder of cognitive dissonance theory, called post-decisional regret. Okay, post-decisional dissonance, because again, what's negative about what we chose and what's positive about what we rejected yield this sense of inconsistency. Okay, so what happens? The consequence is we come to like even more what we chose, and to like a little less what we rejected. Okay. So, there's like classic studies that have basically demonstrated this effect. Some of the earliest ones were done by Jack Brem out at Kansas. Um, he did a situation where we're doing a marketing study. Okay, we have all these products. Okay, that we want people to kind of basically uh, uh, basically uh, rate and evaluate and so on. And then people were asked to rank from the best product, their favorite product, down to the least favorite. Okay, and so people do that, and then basically people are saying, okay, well, you know what? As a reward, we want you to take one of these products with you as our gift to you. And in this particular case, you can have either what they chose as their second favorite or what they chose as their third. Okay? So people have to make a choice, a tough decision, two positively related products. Okay? So people sort of invariably choose number two. It makes sense, right? And then they're asked to basically to sort of re-rate the products, reevaluate them, re-rank them. Okay? And a very common thing happens. Okay? People take the one that was rated number two, that often becomes their favorite among the 10 that they evaluated. And what they chose as number three actually falls down on the list. So you get this spreading of alternatives. It looks like they're liking even better what they chose and kind of downgrading what they rejected. So here's a good example, kind of a neat example of this idea of post-decisional dissonance. Now, if we go back to the previous, this liking more what we chose and less what we rejected, it's called the spreading of alternatives. And it has to do with having to justify our decision. So here's a study that was done at a racetrack here in New York, actually, in which what the researchers did was they basically surveyed people who were either about to or actually just did place a bet. Okay, and they would simply ask them, okay, so what horse are you picking, and how good is your horse's chance to win? Okay, and this question was asked of people who were either standing in line, okay, at the betting window before they placed their bet, or as they came off the line after placing their bet. So it's a 7-point scale, okay? And let's look at the people who were asked either before or after, okay, they placed their bet, okay? So on average, people waiting in line aren't so confident of their horse's chance to win, okay? It's before they did their behavior. 3.48, okay? What about those people coming off the line, okay? Well, here they're nearly 5 on this scale, okay? So they have they see their horse's chances better after they place their bet than they do before they place their bet. So can you see how that's an example of post-decisional dissonance reduction? So, before you place your bet, you haven't committed to anything, okay? But after you've placed your bet, you've engaged in a behavior. You've put money on this horse, okay? Now, so in order to justify it, your attitude actually becomes better, okay? Yeah, my horse has a... I run into a problem with this video. I'm sorry, with this narration. So I'm going to end this one here and start another one where we'll talk about justifying effort and also attitude discrepant behavior in the subsequent narration.